And welcome, Hoosier fans, to another victorious episode of Doing the Work, the first show on the Back Home Network covering IU women's basketball. This is our 93rd episode, recorded on Wednesday, December 27th, 2023. I'm your host, Jeff Marlow. I'm joined today by my co-host, Kathy Amos. Today, we will be breaking down your number 16/number 15 Indiana Hoosiers 84-35 win over the Bowling Green Falcons. The Hoosiers have now won 9 in a row. That brings their record to 10-1. And as usual, we'll start this show with our Hoosier Proud banner moment. And Kathy, I'm going to go here, and I'm sure we're going to talk quite a bit about this young lady, but I thought it was an interesting number. Sarah Scalia's 32 points, combine that with Yarden Garzon's 30 points against Evansville, was the first time IU had back-to-back games with over a 30 plus points in a game. And you had to go back to 2018 when Tyra Buss did it back to back during that season herself. So my banner moment here is Sarah Scalia having the back-to-back performance of 30 plus points along with Yarden Garzon in back-to-back games for the first time since 2018. Our banner moment is brought to you by Home Field Apparel, presenting sponsor of the Back Home Network, who includes Assembly Call and Crimson Cast. Home Field is constantly releasing new schools or updating their products for schools in their existing line. You are bound to find something for you or anyone in your life that just loves great collegiate gear. Not only do you get quality apparel, but you're supporting an Indiana-based business that has its roots in the Kelly School of Business. Go to homefieldapparel.com and use our promo code HOME23, HOME23, to get 15% off your entire first order. That's promo code HOME23 for 15% off. Once again, the website is homefieldapparel.com. Wear one for the team. And in some news, just again, was a kind of a week where there was not a lot of news. Nobody's really played much since Friday. Obviously, IU hasn't either. Sarah Scalia tied for the second most threes in a game as an IU Hoosier with 8. She now has had 6 games also of 30-plus points in her career, combining her time here and at Minnesota. The 35 points that IU gave up on Friday against Bowling Green was the second lowest allowed this season. Only Stetson with 34 had scored fewer. And I also want to remind you that voting is still open at hoophallawards.com, or you can find the link on the IU page, the IU women's basketball page. Sarah Scalia is up for the Ann Myers-Drysdale Award. Yarden Garzon is up for the Cheryl Miller Award. And Mackenzie Holmes is up for the Lisa Leslie Award. And now I'm going to throw it over to my co-host here, Kathy, for the Amos angle. Let's get her thoughts about Friday's game and also maybe even her ideas about the banner moment and some news.
Yeah. Hey, good evening, Jeff. Nice to see you. Nice to see everyone out there in the chat or watching on YouTube or listening to us wherever you're at. Belated Merry Christmas if you celebrate Christmas, or Happy Hanukkah or Kwanzaa or whatever holiday maybe you are still celebrating. But really hope everyone was able to get with some friends and family and maybe give out some hugs and kisses to people you haven't seen for a while. I know I was able to do that, and it really kind of helps kind of keep things in perspective, I think. So got to talk a lot of basketball with my brother and my mom while we were back there, and watched a lot of football. So it was just all around good weekend. So for me, that is my banner moment, was just being able to get back to Southern Indiana and see a lot of my family I haven't seen, for quite a while, for many months, since, we live a bit apart. So really excited about the way that the women, I think, are coming together, especially defensively. As you mentioned, 35 points was the lowest since Stetson, which was only 34 points, which anytime you can hold a team in the, low 30s is just, I think, phenomenal. I don't care what their ranking is. That's just really great defense. And I can't remember what Bowling Green averaged coming into this game, but I can guarantee it was definitely more than 35 points. So really excited about how that defense, I think, is really starting to gel. And, I know we'll get into it more, but wow, Sarah Scalia, just was on fire on Friday night. So really love to see how she's wrapping up her non-conference play as well. So we'll get into it later, but I think this team is really starting to gel at the right time. We're getting into conference season, and there's still some warts here, I'm sure, here and there that we'll see throughout the year. But honestly, I think that this is just turning into a nice team, and they're really starting to find their way forward, Jeff. So for me, that's my angle that I'm looking at today.
Yeah, Kat, I'll go back to the defense real quick and kind of pick your brain on that a little bit as well, because I thought Terry Morin kind of hit that in the post game press conference a little bit on Friday, that she felt the defense was actually making some progress. It may not be quite to what she wants it to be yet, but I got the sense out listening to her that she finally, maybe she thought maybe they were getting a corner turned and they were getting to where she's at least expecting them to get to. Whereas in the first part of the year, let's face it, the first 10 games, there were many nights where she was pretty frustrated with the defense. I felt like in that post-game press conference on Friday after Bowling Green, felt like she could kind of maybe see the light at the end of the tunnel. What did you kind of get that same thing, or am I off the mark there?
No, I did too. I read some of her comments. I didn't get to watch her post-game press conference, but I read some of her comments in the recap out on the Indiana homepage. And it definitely sounds to me she's a lot happier with the defense. No. Is it where she wants it to be? No. Will it ever be? Probably not. I mean, we're always seeking for improvement, and there's always something I'm sure that they can look at and get to it. But is it the C's and D's that we were hearing from her earlier this year in the season? I don't think so. I think it's definitely come a long way from what it seems like a long time ago, but it was really just a couple of weeks ago that they had that comment, right? I think it was around 2.5, maybe 3 weeks ago. So it seems to have really starting to gel with them and hit the mark and resonate with the team, whatever it is she's saying behind closed doors, because we know she's saying that to us in the press conference, and the conversations behind closed doors probably even a little more strong than what we're hearing.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So, Kathy, let's move on to some pivotal plays here in that game from Bowling Green. And I'm going to go first. I just thought the pivotal plays.
Mine, then.
Huh?
Don't steal mine then.
I'll try not to. But I just thought, and I don't remember the exact sequence, but there was a point there where Sarah Scalia in that first half, she hit 2 threes in a row, had a layup in there, and you just kind of get the feeling that she was feeling it on Friday night, and that she was, and it was one of those nights where it was like, hey, put me on your, I'll put you on my back and I'll carry you. You don't have to have it. We'll have a little bit of this, and I'll be the guy tonight, or I'll be the girl tonight. And I thought that took some of the pressure off some of the other players. I thought that the rest of them then played a little bit easier in terms of their confidence and the pressure that they felt on them. So that to me was pivotal. That sequence there where Sarah got hot and it was like, just give me the ball and get out of my way.
Yeah, I think Sarah, I mean, we'll talk about her, I'm sure, later here in our program tonight. But yeah, she came out firing for sure, ended up 8 of 11 from 3-pointer. I thought that was great. One of the plays I wrote down early on, Jeff, was actually from Chloe Moore McNeil in a similar fashion. We've been kind of talking about wanting to see her a little more aggressive offensively. I thought we got that from her Friday night. And one of the plays that really out of the gate in that first quarter, she took 3 threes. In fact, the very first shot of the game was the Chloe Moore McNeil 3. Now, she only made 1 of those 3, but I liked the aggressiveness that we saw from her, and she ended up going 3 for 6 from 3-point land. And so I thought Chloe came out a little more aggressive than we have seen her in terms of offense. So I really liked what I saw from Chloe offensively. Her defense has been there all season. And, in addition to putting up, 9 points, she also had 5 assists as well to go with it. So I think offensively, some of the more aggressive Chloe that we were hoping to see, I saw a little more of that on Friday night from her.
Yeah, and in a game that you win by 49 to be technical, but a game that you win by 50, it's really hard to pinpoint a lot of just pivotal plays like you would in a very close game. And I'm going to go back to one that Terry Morin talked a little bit about, Kathy, and that occurred, unfortunately, for one of our opponents, but I felt like it really did set the tone for the game. And Coach Morin talked about this in the post game when Lexi Fleming went down with a knee injury and in the first minute to 90 seconds of the game. and it was pretty obvious that she was not going to be coming back. And you take away the leading scorer for Bowling Green, and even Coach Morin said she felt like it took her players a couple minutes to kind of get back into their their psyche right, in terms of because you as an athlete, you're looking at that, you're going, that could have been me. I mean, it's it's not, it's that kind of mentality. So sometimes you got to get yourself back into that mind frame. But taking Lexi Fleming away from them, even though it was an injury, and hopefully she'll be all right. I tried scouring some news, Google in the last couple of days, could not find anything about her any more than what we saw on Friday. But she's their league scorer. She was the MAC player of the year 2 years ago. I mean, this is somebody that you take them out of their lineup. Obviously, that was going to be a pivotal moment for both teams. And obviously it helped Indiana in the game.
Yeah. I thought so too, Jeff. And, I was looking as well and couldn't find any injury updates on her too. So it didn't look good with the knee, but I hopefully she'll come back, because, you never want to see anybody hurt at all. And especially somebody that is as talented as she is. So, I had a couple plays kind of continuing on with my theme that I wrote down, that I wrote down from Chloe Moore McNeil. Again, I thought, I talked about her offensively, but there again in the first half, she's diving on the floor for a steal in the first quarter. In the second quarter, she had great defense, almost forced a shot clock violation, ended up in a travel from Bowling Green. And then in the third quarter, she comes out again with great defense and ends up forcing a jump ball. And those were some of my favorite plays. I see somebody here on Twitter asking what our favorite plays was. That those were some of my favorite plays, was just see that toughness on defense. And we've seen that all year from Chloe, but I thought it was even heightened more on Friday night because of her offensive play as well. So all around, I was really excited about Chloe's play and seeing all of that from her on both ends of the floor.
Yeah, and I think that part of what I think that Coach Morin's been looking for, not just from Chloe, but from all of them. Are they willing to get on the floor? Are they willing to, to lock in defensively for a 30-second span and see if you can get a shot clock violation or force it? We saw this several times in that game on Friday, kind of what you're talking about, and where Bowling Green was late. I mean, really late into the shot clock, under 5, where they were trying really to get a shot up, and it didn't look like they had much offense going. Excuse me. With that, I also want to point out here, pivotal plays. I thought the bench got a lot of play.
Yep.
And we'll talk about some of their numbers here in the next segment as well, I'm sure. But I thought it was really important in a game that I thought was going to be a lot closer. We did this preview a week ago. I felt like this was going to be a game that we needed to be ready for. I kind of felt like it was a game where they were going to come in. They had not played some of the better teams well, but I thought just because of what they could do shooting the ball when they were on, Sharps had scored 25 against South Carolina on Tuesday, I believe, before we played them. And we held her, and Sharps, gets 6. So, so their 2 leading scores basically ended up with 0 or with 6 points because Fleming didn't score at all. And then Sharps was 6. But I think that's what the kids on the bench, I thought they played well. I thought, Lene Beaumont, Jules Lemondola, Lily Meister, and Lexi Bargesser especially. I thought those 4 really gave some solid minutes. If you look up and down the minutes, Sarah played the most, but for the most part, everybody was in the low 20s or the high teens in terms of minutes.
Yeah, I think so. And Jeff, do you remember who was guarding Sharps? It was hard for me to watch on my little tablet since we were driving back, but I can't remember who was guarding her.
A little bit of difference. I think they had Sid on her for a little bit. I think they had Yarden on there for a while. It was never one specific person.
Yeah.
They may have shifted Chloe over there a little bit more. I wasn't paying as much attention to that matchup. But once Fleming got hurt, they may have shifted Chloe over there a little bit more as well.
Yeah. So, I didn't have any other notable or pivotal plays, Jeff, that I wrote down. As you noted, in a 49-point win, it was not a lot of pivotal plays going on, other than we should note, they did hold them again back to that defense to 6 points, and not just one quarter, but 2, the first and the third quarter. Boy, they held them to only 6 points in those 2 quarters. And I thought that just really opened up things for them pretty easily there in that first quarter to get that cushion built up.
Yeah, when you look at those 2 quarters, Gad, that's a great point. Those 2 quarters combined, I use winning 41-12.
Yep.
And that's a huge margin, obviously. So they were setting the tone. And I think that was one of the things that we talked about earlier. We kind of hinted around it. That I'm sure that was kind of the message from Coach Morin going into the game and coming out of halftime. Hey, let's go out there and let's establish ourselves defensively in the first few minutes of this game or half. So with that, but no, I don't have any more pivotal plays. You want to move on to the numbers?
Let's do it.
All right. I'm going to throw it over to you, Kathy. Let you go first here on the notable numbers.
Yeah, I think what I was going to talk about was 27. 27. That is the most minutes anybody played, which was Sarah Scalia. And honestly, I'm not sure if we would have had her playing 27 minutes if she wasn't quite so on fire as she was, but it was kind of hard to take her out the way she was shooting and playing. So I think 27 minutes, which kind of parlays into what you were saying with the bench. We had people coming off of the bench playing 15 up to 20 minutes out of Jules Lamandola. And that is exactly what we wanted to see in this game was, double digit minutes from all of our bench players. So we had 5 bench players with double digit minutes, and we had 9 different players score in this game. And so to me, that was a nice way to get our depth going and our bench players going.
Yeah, I'm going to go to one of the things that Coach Morin likes to point out a lot of times, even though I didn't see it as much in this post-game press conference, but sharing the sugar, she says, 21 assists on 30 made baskets. So basically 7 out of 10 baskets were assisted on. And you already mentioned Chloe had 5, but Yarden had 4. And so, they did a nice job. I'm trying to do the math here real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think 9 people had an assist. Yes. 9 different people had at least 1 assist. So that, again, to me, that's going to be a number I'm really watching as we go forward into the Big Ten season is, are we able to kind of keep that level of 70-75% assist rate on made buckets?
Yeah, absolutely.
You go. What do you got?
The other number that we've been watching a lot in addition to the assists is the rebounding. And we did end up winning the rebounding game, but it was only by 4, 38-34 in our favor, which I thought was really good. But again, it's where I would have expected a little bit more of a margin for us on rebounding. So, especially when you hold their shooting here, I'm trying to find their percentage. Maybe have the shooting percentage. I would have
23.
thought we had there you go. 23. Thanks. I'm just really struggling to find it. I'm not at my usual website that I usually do, and I should not do that. Anyway, but 38 rebounds, which is fine. But again, I'm concerned about that coming into Big Ten play. So more from a big picture standpoint, allowing them to get 14 offensive rebounds, is where I'm kind of concerned on, because I think that's where we're seeing still a bit of a gap from this team. But what is your overall thought for rebounding?
I kind of the same. I thought we won. It was nice to see us win the battle. I'd like to have won it by more. Now, let's face it. When you're shooting 55%, there's not as many offensive rebound opportunities as for a team that's shooting 23%. But I just thought the margin would be bigger. We're going to talk a little bit about this in a later segment, I think, quite a bit. But again, the alarming number here is against Bowling Green, we gave up 14 offensive rebounds. And that is going to be a concern against the top level of the Big Ten. And what, an Iowa, an Ohio State, we're still kind of figuring out who the top 4 or 5 teams are in the Big Ten. But again, I think those are going to be Illinois and coming up here on Sunday. That Illinois rebounds well. Kendall Bostic is, one of the best rebounders in the Big Ten. And so you've got to make sure you keep their second and third opportunities limited. But I totally agreed with your first point.
Yeah.
So
the other number for me, I think, Jeff, is turnovers. We only had 11, but forced 17. And so that's, again, the nice margin and the right way that we want to see. And I know the team's goal is to keep that around 10 or 11 or 12. And they were right at that mark. So I think the turnover battle here was really spot on for us on Friday night.
Yeah, but the concern there is Mac had 5 by herself. And and if I remember right, they were all travels, all kind of happy feet in the post. That has to get cleaned up. because she may not see as much double and triple teaming as she saw from Evansville and Bowling Green, but she's also going to get better post defenders that can maybe take her one-on-one, or maybe they shade a little bit. It's more one and a half rather than a true double. So she's got to clean that up a little bit, because you can't have half of your turnovers coming from post play down inside with your best post player.
Yeah. And the interesting thing for me with that, Jeff, is that it seemed like we talked about that a lot her junior year, around her having happy feet. And then last year, all we could talk about was how good her feet were. And it feels like she kind of regressed in that area this year. So I'm hoping that, she'll kind of get some focus on that in the upcoming couple of days before we play Illinois. But, I've been hearing in some podcasts and in press conferences and other things that Coach Morin has really been pushing Mackenzie, that she thinks there's a lot more in there than she's giving right now. And that will be interesting come conference play. But I think this is one of the areas that probably it's surfacing, is the turnovers again. Because she's still putting up points. She didn't quite as much with Bowling Green, but again, when you have Sarah Scalia putting up the points that she didn't need to. Mm-hmm. But, the 5 turnovers is concerning. If this was one game that we've seen it, okay. But this has been multiple games now. We've started talking about Mackenzie and her footwork, and in the opposite way, we've talked about it last year, which was in the positive.
I'm going to build off your turnover number here with 2 stats. So we'll kind of finish up. I'll finish up with here. Points off turnovers. Indiana won that battle 20-6. And fast break points, Indiana won that battle 16-2. And to me, those really kind of go hand in hand. They're not always one in the same, but usually if you're creating turnovers, you're usually getting, obviously the points off the turnovers, but a lot of times those are fast break points or helping to lead to some fast break points. But so I thought that those were key numbers. And again, those are be numbers that I don't think you'll see in Big Ten play, but I think you got to win those stats. I think if you're Indiana, I don't think you can just try to grind out possession. I don't think that's what we've seen from this team this year. We don't see kind of long grinded out possessions. So I don't think we'll see we'll really have to worry too much about that kind of play. But Kathy, just real quick, I would mention as well, 56% field goal, 56% on threes against Bowling Green. And we've kind of seen this kind of the Jekyll and Hyde of IU three-point shooting. At home, pretty good, which I think is kind of the norm, but we got to find a way to maybe, but we've also seen some games on the road where it hasn't been as good.
Yeah, I think so too. But on the flip side of it, we held them to 23% shooting, 0 of 11 from 3-point. Now, some of that could just be, the talent, but that was something we talked about coming into this game, that Bowling Green shot a lot of threes. They only shot 11. They seemed to be trying to drive it more, because I thought our perimeter defense on Friday night was really spot on, and it really turned up in that 0 for 11 number of 3-point.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I didn't put this in the news, but Kathy, I did, and you and I were texting about this a little bit. I think I had it in the chat on the Substack for those who didn't see it. And I got this from Austin Render, listened to a little bit on the radio broadcast. That 0 for Bowling Green snapped a 600 game streak of at least one made 3 in a game that dated all the way back to 2005. I mean, sometimes it's just luck. I'd like to say it's skill to hold a team to 0 for 11. Sometimes you're just getting a little lucky. They miss some open shots, but you snapped a streak that was like 600 games long.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it was probably a good combination of both. I thought our perimeter defense, but there was some luck in that too, I think.
So, all right, Kathy, let's move on to the game ball here, and I'm going to let you go first. I don't think there's really any debate about this one tonight.
No, let me think. Gosh, it's going to be so hard. Nope, Sarah. It's got to be Sarah.
I'll double that right now.
Yes. I don't know how you don't give it to somebody who goes 8 of 11 from 3-pointer, 2 for 2 from the line. She added 3 rebounds. If you're going to nitpick, I guess she had 4 fouls, but I don't even think, that's fouls drawn. I'm sorry. She had 0 fouls, right? 32 points, 2 assists, and 3 steals to boot. Like, if you're going to talk about a perfect game, this was pretty close to it. I thought her defense, I mean, Coach Morin talked about that in, her press conference again, about how as much as she is impressed by the 32 points and how well she was offensively, she said she was more impressed with Sarah defensively on the other end. And so I think this was just a perfectly great, complete game for Sarah.
And by the way, I forgot to mention this before Kathy went, because I'm totally with her. I think people want to have an investigation if we tried to pick somebody besides Sarah. But our game balls before this game, Mackenzie Holmes was leading our game balls with 4, Yarden Garzone with 3. Sarah Scalia had 2, and Sydney Parrish had 1 coming into this game. So Sarah's going to jump up to her 3rd game ball here for the season, because I wholeheartedly agree with what you're saying. And you mentioned a good point, Kathy, about the defense. And I saw that comment as well. But one thing I noticed is when Sarah finally came out of the game, when you realized it was going to be her last time coming out, just how genuinely, and to me, this goes back to the things we've talked about with people on the show before, that the family atmosphere, there was a genuine love. There was a genuine appreciation from her teammates for the performance that she'd had when she came over to the bench that last time she came out. And that's neat to see, because again, this program is really different in that respect a lot of times, because a lot of times you may get the high fives, things like that. But this team, you could just tell by their facial expression, body language, everybody felt that even though Sarah had the 32 points, they were happy for her. And felt like it's just as easily could have been one of them. And that was the feeling that at least I got out of it, was that it was all for one, one for all, that family mentality.
Yeah. And we saw the same thing with Yarden when she had her 30-point game, the previous game. It may be a notable number we should talk about is not just the bench family and the family of the team and the coaches, but, our fans. They turned up again on a Friday night for Bowling Green. There was 9,067 was the official attendance on Friday night.
With very few students.
With very few, if any, students, since they're all on break. And so I think that bodes really well, hopefully, because we predicted that hopefully our attendance will keep going up as we get into conference play and stiffer competition. So we saw that with Yarden as well. Sydney posted on Twitter a couple of times, about, Yarden and how excited she was for her. So I think that Greece trip especially really is showing off, and you could see it in those types of expressions that you're talking about.
So congratulations to Sarah for the game ball against Bowling Green. Let's move on to the Grace Berger Hardest Worker of the Award here as we come into the game against Bowling Green. For those who are watching on the live YouTube feed, Kathy has the scroll up on the screen. Sydney Parrish with 3, Mackenzie Holmes and Lexi Bargesser with 2 each, and then Lene Beaumont and Lily Meister with 1 each coming into the game. So Kathy, I'll let you go first.
Yeah. So I think this is kind of another game where, here we have already 5 different people who have gotten our Grace Berger Hardest Worker, and we're only 11 games in. We have 5 different people who've gotten it. I think there's a lot of different ways you can go. For example, I think, Lily Meister came in first off the bench. She ended up giving some really fantastic minutes, I thought, with her, her 8 rebounds. She was 3 of 4 from field goals with her 6 points. I thought Lexi came in and gave us some really good defensive pressure. But for me, I'm going to go for the first time this year, I'm voting for Chloe Moore McNeil for our Hardest Worker Award. And I might have been kind of shown up in my comments about her when I was talking about different pivotal plays. But I thought what we saw from Chloe was, again, a nice complete game. And it may not show up in the stat line per se with only quote unquote, only 9 points. But I thought Chloe played a heck of a game all around. Again, 5 assists, 9 points. She had a couple of rebounds, but I thought defensively, she was just really tenacious on defense on Friday night, even more so than we're used to seeing, which is always really good. So for me, Chloe got my vote.
Yeah, I had a couple ways I was going with this. I really liked the effort that Lily gave, as you mentioned, with the 6 points and 8 rebounds. She had an assist. She had a block. I also really liked what Lene did with 8 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists. But I'm going to go with you. I did more because I thought I saw a more aggressive Chloe Moore McNeil on Friday night. And I hope that stays, especially at the offensive end, but just also defensively. I felt like she was even more so locked in. And as you mentioned, she was diving on the floor. And that's what I think was really the difference in Chloe's game on Friday night. So I'm gonna go with you, and we'll give it to Chloe Moore McNeil with the 9 points, 2 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 steals, and she only played 20 minutes. So she did not play the most minutes of the game. As we said, Sarah had 27, but in roughly half the game. So Chloe Moore McNeil will pick up her first Grace Berger Hardest Working Award of the year.
Yes. So, Jeff, maybe before we kind of dive into talking about what's next, just a little bit more on this game that I wanted to touch on was with Mackenzie. So Mackenzie ended up with 10 points, 6 rebounds, and 1 block shot. So again, I know somebody asked me during our Discord conversation on Friday to give an update on the numbers she has to catch Tyra Buss. So again, she needs to get to 2,364 points. She is currently now at exactly 2,100. So she has 264 points to go to grab first place. So based on the number of games we have left, not counting any postseason, so I'm not counting Big Ten tournament or NCAA, she needs to average around 15.5 points per game. Currently, she's averaging 18.5 points a game. So I don't know that I'm concerned about her play other than the fact of the turnovers that we talked about. And I'm not concerned about that she only, quote unquote, only put up 10 points against Bowling Green, because again, we just didn't need her to put up more with the way Sarah was. Nope. I do think that it might come down a little bit once we hit conference play here. So overall, I don't think Mackenzie had a bad game at all. And people might look at 10 points and 6 rebounds and say, oh, she wasn't in 5 turnovers. I don't think she had a bad game. I just don't think we needed her to have an All-American game.
No, but the 5 turnovers took away opportunities for her.
Yes.
And that's the thing that we come back to talking with that is she needs to make the most of her opportunities. And I'm not saying every one of those was going to end up in a shot for her, because you also look, like you mentioned, she had 2 assists, which means she was finding open people as well, out of the post and the double and the triple team. But again, against Bowling Green, the game didn't move that way. They were doing a good job of trying to take Mackenzie away, as you said. But in 23 minutes, you would expect a little bit, maybe more than 10 points. But again, it was a different night. Sarah's filling it up, 8 of 11 from 3 as well. And again, we'll talk about, we saw some comments from the workaholics in here. Sydney only had 5 points. You look at Sydney Parrish's night, 5 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, a block. But only played 19 minutes. So again, it was a little different vibe, but we were commenting here, I believe is Eagle Eye that we were talking with, that just, they're still kind of waiting for that bust out game for Sydney this year. We know it's in there. We know she can, and again, she's somebody that does a little bit of everything. Biggest thing for Sydney as you look at is just going into Big Ten season, she's got to stay out of foul trouble. I think that's an important thing for all of our starters, but I think because the way Coach Moore is trying to manage rotations a little bit, I think that you really have to try and keep some of your better players and your starters out of foul trouble. But I will say this, I think, again, we'll wait and see what the Big Ten season brings us, but I think she's getting some trust in these bench players. And I think that they'll be able to step up and hold their own as we head into Big Ten play.
Yep, I agree.
So, all right, Kathy. So let's talk about Illinois real quick. I'm going to kind of take the team aspect here, and I'll let you go into the individuals a little bit. So that game against Illinois on Sunday, New Year's Eve, 12:30 Eastern time, 11:30 Central. It is on regular BTN. And by the way, for all of our people who are watching or listening between now and Friday, if you have BTN Plus, the men's game on Friday against Kennesaw State is on BTN Plus. Our friend Austin Render is going to be doing the play-by-play on that game on BTN Plus with our friend and Crimson Cast host Galen Clavio is going to be providing the color as well. So if you have the BTN Plus subscription, I would not get it for just this one game, but if you have the BTN Plus subscription, try not to miss this one, or go back and watch it if you can't watch it live, because I believe Austin and Galen will do a heck of a job. I'm looking forward to that on Friday night. But this women's game on Sunday is on regular BTN. Illinois is currently number 62 in the net. So, and they've been dropping, and then they are 6-5 currently coming into this game. They've lost to Marquette 71-67. Notre Dame beat them 78-69. So the Missouri beat them 69-66. Arkansas beat them 60-59. So 4 of their losses have been single-digit losses. But then Michigan, their only game so far in the Big Ten, they're 0-1 in the league. Michigan blows them out in Champaign 84-48. Realistically, their best, I guess maybe their best win happened just last week. They beat UTEP 81-71 to snap a 3-game losing streak. That's the other thing I think that's starting to catch up to them a little bit in the net as they've piled up some losses, is that they haven't played a great strength of schedule. I don't go into the numbers deeply. I know our friend Ari sometimes will go dig into the schedules a little bit, but I don't with that. So, but 6-5, 0-1 in the league. IU leads the all-time series 48-29, including 25-9 at Simon Scott Assembly Hall. IU has won the, knock on wood, IU has won the last 15 in a row. The last Illinois win was February 23rd, 2013 at Illinois, 73-60. Indiana won both matchups last year. A very tough game, down to the wire game in Bloomington, 65-61. And then a nice win. I won't say comfortable, but a nice win at Champaign, 83-72. Illinois comes in averaging 75.1 points per game, which is 9th in the league. I did some numbers crunching yesterday and today as we were getting ready for the show. So I was looking at the conference stats a little bit, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of these numbers later in another segment, just to preview that. They're giving up 62.5, which is 7. So they're roughly middle of the pack in both of those. They're shooting 46.3% on field goals. That's 6th. Not bad, but the league's actually shooting pretty well when you look at the top teams. But they're only shooting 31.3% from 3, which is 14th, dead last in the league right now. But they attempt 17.7 threes per game. So they're really struggling to hit it. But as Kathy was mentioning earlier, going to have to stay on our toes defensively. They only average 11 turnovers. They force 15.5, and they are +5 in rebounding margin, roughly the same as Indiana. So that's going to be another key stat I look at. Kathy, I've talked enough about the team. How about you take a look at some of the individuals?
Sure. Yeah. So, excuse me, from a scoring perspective, they are led by Genesis Bryant. She is a 5'6" senior guard. She is averaging 15 points per game, an additional 3 rebounds per game, 3 assists per game, and she is shooting 46% field goal percentage with 42% from 3. And if she gets fouled, she's pretty good there at 85% from the line. So her scoring has her 13th in the conference right now. Last year, she made the second all Big Ten team. And she had her first 2 years at NC State. So she's another transfer into the Big Ten. Makira Cook is also there in double-digit scoring. She's a 5'6" senior guard as well. She is 12.5 points per game on averaging so far this year, 4 rebounds per game, and 3.5 assists per game. Additionally, she shoots 34% from the field, but here's where, maybe that 3-point shooting that you were talking about, Jeff, she's only shooting 27% from 3. So that seems maybe a little uncharacteristic from her. She was first team all Big Ten last year, so I can see that she could start heating it up. So I'm hoping our perimeter defense is like we saw it on Friday night, because while they're not shooting it great, as you mentioned, last in the Big Ten, we don't want them to start getting heated up against us on New Year's Eve. Makira Cook also, by the way, was her first 2 years were at Dayton. Also, another player you should watch, also double-digit average right now, is Kendall Bostic. Kendall is a 6'2" senior forward. She is currently 3rd in rebounding in the Big Ten, averaging 8.7 rebounds per game. She's scoring 12.5 points per game. And she's shooting 70% field goal percentage. So again, be interesting to watch that matchup. I would expect, don't you, that she'll be matched up with McKenzie? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I would expect so as well. She was the second team all Big Ten last year, and her freshman year she spent at Michigan State. She is a Northwestern high school graduate where they had a 2-time state champion. And then the last person to watch is another double digits average scoring person, Adalia McKenzie. She's a 5'10" junior guard, averaging 10.5 points per game and 4.5 rebounds per game. And last year she was all Big Ten honorable mention. So in terms of matchup, I think I would expect really to see that Kendall Bostic and McKenzie going at it. And then I'll be curious if Chloe Moore McNeil is on Genesis Bryant or on Makira Cook, but either one of those two players, I would expect Chloe to be kind of matched up on, maybe leaning towards the Genesis Bryant just because she is kind of leading in that scoring range and, keeping that at bay, and then maybe Sarah on Makira. But those are kind of the three matchups in particular that I'm kind of looking forward to.
Yeah, and the big thing there with Makira Cook is you really see that drop off. She was a much better shooter last year. I think if I looked at it, she was a 40-some% free field goal per shooter. Her threes were in the 30% and shooting free throws. So that she has really dropped off shooting wise from this year. But again, as we said, has the ability to get hot. The thing here, Kathy, I'll go back to this a little bit last year. And again, teams are different. I know that. But this was the kind of team that really gave us fits last year. Athletic guards who could hit the three, but also were just as good at penetrating, getting deep into the lane, and either drawing a foul or just finishing at the rim. And if that first game down in Bloomington was really kind of like that, where we really struggled at times to guard Genesis Bryant, and as you know, in that game in Bloomington.
Yeah, I remember, and I think that's what took so many of us off guard last year with that Illinois game at home, where I thought they kept it really close. And so, the concern I have again is, they do shoot a lot of threes. So again, that long rebound, and we've not been really great on the defensive rebounding side. And can we keep them from getting hot in Simon Scott Assembly Hall and all of a sudden having a great game? And we don't want Makira Cook to have her breakout game against us in our own place. So perimeter defense and rebounding again. And can we force more turnovers than Illinois averages? I think that will be an interesting thing to watch too. They have a very low turnover rate for a team that have only 11 turnovers so far this year. So I'll be interested to see if maybe we can ramp that up for them this time.
And a number I'm going to be keeping an eye on, and may not be one that I should necessarily be like take to the bank, but I think McKenzie has to out rebound Kendall Bostic. I mean, I'm looking at that number. Kendall Bostic cannot go for 12, 13, 14 rebounds, and McKenzie only gets 7 or 8. McKenzie needs to have a double kind of night, I think, up against a Kendall Bostic, and maybe even get Kendall Bostic in foul trouble. Bostic's a good player. Don't get me wrong. A little undersized for the 5 in the Big Ten, but she's going to battle and she's going to work hard. But McKenzie will have a little bit of have some size advantage in there. And I think that's one that if I'm coaching them, that I'm going to try and exploit. Now, again, they're probably going to double or as soon as on the catch, bring a double, something like that. But I think McKenzie has to really outplay Kendall Bostic here. And then hope that Chloe Moore McNeil does her magic on the defensive end with either Genesis Bryant or Makira Cook, whoever, they assign her to. So, but this is a game you can't overlook. And we're going to talk a little bit about the Big Ten schedule here in a segment or so, but we're going to move on. Kathy, got anything else you want to add about Illinois?
No, I don't think so. Hopefully it'll be a good way to finish up the year.
I think we talked. Yeah, I think if we go back to the preseason, I think we both felt like this is a game that we ought to win. We should win. It's at home in the league. But this is also one of those games we talked about that Illinois could be a dangerous opponent. And I think they still are, even though their record right now, they're scuffling along a little bit at 6-5.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. So we're going to go into a little buy and sell segment here. Oh, Kathy even made the banner for the YouTube feed. All right. I was trying to fool her a little bit. In fairness to Kathy, I kind of threw this all together this afternoon and kind of like, hey, we got this. So Kathy, you can pick either the raw number, buy or sell, or where they're positioned at in the Big Ten, buy or sell. All right.
Okay.
Okay. So IU's currently averaging 80.9 points per game. That puts them 6th in the Big Ten. Buy or sell?
I'm going to say both. I think that actually more Probably sell on both sides. Interesting though. I think that their points per game might go down as the competition and the defense goes up, but I think that they'll finish higher than 6th.
I agree. I totally agree with that. And from that standpoint, I think the raw number will come down, but I think their overall average or their ranking in the league, I think will move up. I agree. IU allows 56.5 points per game currently. That's 3rd in the Big Ten. Buy or sell?
Yep. I'm kind of in the same spot here. But I'm going to push. I think 3rd in the Big Ten seems about right where they might finish, maybe a tick higher at 2nd. I do think the 56.5 points per game, again, will go up. I think the competition is going to increase. And I think we're going to see a few more teams like Iowa and Ohio State and other teams that can really put up the numbers. I don't think we'll continue to force below 60 points per game.
Yeah, Kathy, I totally agree with you there. And just we're not going to get any more Bowling Green and Stetson type scores. So
Right.
I'm
No more
with you. I
34
think
points.
I think the raw number goes up, but I think 3rd, I agree, a push there. IU shoots 51% field goal percent, 51% from the field. That's 1st in the league currently. Buy or sell?
Yeah. I think I'm buying this too. Again, same kind of concept here. I think 51% will come down. That just seems to be a really crazy number. But if, we can get the ball to McKenzie and Sarah keeps, shooting it the way she does, that might stay the way it is. But I think 1st is doable in field goal percentage.
I believe the raw number comes down under 50%, not much, maybe 48, 5, 49-ish, because again, we're going to play some better defensive teams. I'm thinking, I'm not sure they'll stay at 1st. The top 3, yes, but I'm not sure they stay at 1st. IU allows 35.4% field goal by the opponent. That currently ranks 1st in the Big Ten. Buy or sell?
Yeah, same thing here. I think that 35% will come up a little bit. But again, I think 1st place in field goal percentage allowed, I think that's also a doable number for this team.
Yeah, I buy that one. I think they can lead the league in field goal percentage defense, even though it will come up a little more toward 40. I think they're 38 even. They're gonna. I think they're there. IU shoots 36.8% 3-point field goal percentage. That's 4th in the league. Buy or sell?
So this is an interesting one. I think I'm going to continue to maybe be a push on both of these just because of what you were alluding to earlier. At home, I think the number's higher. On the road, I think it's going to be, we just seem to just dry up. We saw that at Stanford in particular and at Maine and on the road. So I think 36.8% is probably about where we might end up this year. 4th place, yeah, maybe right around that range too.
Yeah, I think the number will come down a little bit. I think there's just going to be some nights where we don't shoot it as well, especially as you're going to get more true road games in the Big Ten now. But I think they can be 3rd, maybe 4th in the league in field goal percentage, 3-point field goal percentage. Currently, IU allows the opponent to shoot 26.9% on threes, which is 3rd. Buy or sell?
So allowing 26.9% from 3, I think that goes up. I think we're going to see some better shooting teams. But if our perimeter defense stays locked in on Friday night, the way the way it was Friday night against Bowling Green, we'll see. But again, I think we're going to run into the Caitlin Clarks and other, JC Sheldon and people that can put up threes. I think that goes up. In terms of where they land right now, they're 3rd. That feels about right to me.
Yeah, I think they may drop a little bit, but not much. I'm with you there. I guess I would say sell slightly just because I think they may drop to 4th or 5th. But yeah, the raw number is going to come up. This is one I think is concerning. IU shoots right now. IU is shooting 68.8% free throw percentage. That's 12th in the league. Buy or sell?
I'm maybe putting on my crimson colored glasses here, but I'm going to sell both of those. I think that they end up shooting better than 68.8% and certainly a lot better than 12th in the league. Maybe that's wishful thinking, but I do think they're a better free throw shooting team than that number shows.
I'm with you, but if it doesn't, and we may be sitting here at the end of the season talking about a couple games where free throws cost them.
Yeah.
If it doesn't.
Agreed. Yeah.
IU is currently out rebounding opponents +5 per game. That's 7th in the Big Ten. Buy or sell?
I'm a little concerned about the rebounding. I wouldn't be surprised if that margin goes up from 0.5 or +5. And I think this is a number for me in particular. If they can't do a little better out rebounding the opponents, I think that's where I think we'll definitely see some games dropped as well.
Yeah, I'm going to sell here as well. This is one that concerns
Yeah.
me, and I would not be shocked if we end up around 9th or 10th in rebound margin at the end of the season. Assist to turnover ratio. Indiana's 1.7 assist to turnover ratio. That's second in the league. Buy or
Yeah,
sell?
I'm totally buying that, and honestly wouldn't be surprised if I see that go up in to first place by the end of the year. I think that's about where we finished last year, and the way Chloe especially is running the show right now. I'm buying that one.
I'll buy that as well. I totally agree. IU right now is averaging 20.3 assists per game. That's second in the league.
Yep. Same thing there. Maybe it comes down a smidge, who knows, with a better defense. But again, I think that we can move up even into that first place range.
Yeah, I'm with you on that as well. I think that both those numbers may come down slightly. It might go to 18, 19 by the time we get to the end of the season, but it's still going to be first or second in the league, I think. Let's talk about some individuals. Mackenzie Holmes is currently, as you said, averaging 18.5 points per game. That's fourth in the league. Sarah Sky is at 16.5, which is 11th. You buying or selling that they stay in the top 15?
I'm going to buy both of those. I think that, Mackenzie in particular could stay in the top 5. I could even see Sarah moving into the top 10 if she continues to have the shooting nights that we can see from her. She's already put up 28 points and 32 points. I can see her moving up.
I agree. I'm going to buy on both of those as well. Mackenzie Holmes, 6.8 rebounds per game, which is 12th in the league right now. Sydney Parrish at 6.2 rebounds is 16th. Buy or sell that they both stay in the top 20?
In the top 20. I definitely am buying top 20. I'm hopeful that Mackenzie can get herself back into the top 10. I'd really like her rebounding numbers, in particular, that 6.8 to go up. That 6 from Sydney, I think is probably right on. If, she can squeak into that top 15. She's 16th right now. That would be nice, but I definitely buy that they'll be in the top 20. I really hope that Mackenzie can move her rebounding number up.
Okay. Mackenzie Holmes shooting 65. And I agree with both of that. I'm
Okay.
buying on that they'll stay in the top 20.
I thought maybe you were just scared to say on that one.
Yeah. Mackenzie Holmes, 65.6% field goal, second in the league. Yarden Garzon is 48.3%. She's 13th currently. Buy or sell, Mackenzie stays in the top 5. Buy or sell, Yarden stays in the top 15.
Yeah, I buy on both of those. I think Mackenzie, I think she ended up leading the league, right, last year in field goal percentage. And I think Yarden can finish in the top 15 as well. Again, the interesting thing with Mackenzie, like you mentioned, can she start handling the double team a little bit more and not turn the ball over? And I think that will help her field goal percentage as well.
Yeah, I'm going to say sell here on Yarden. I'm just not sure that Yarden, as we get into the league, is going to continue to be in the top 15, but I think she'll be top 20. But I think the overall percentage will come down a little bit, just because I think you're going to see Yarden shoot a little bit more as we get into the Big Ten season. Her outside shots, the number of outside shots will increase compared to some of the post-up opportunities I think she had in the non-conference season. Sarah Scalia, 47.9% three-point field goal percentage. She's first in the league. Buying or selling that Sarah can stay in the top? Can she stay first or at least top 5?
I think she can stay first. I think she is really dialed in here. And I don't see it here, but isn't she not first in free throw percentage as well? I mean, I would be shocked. I think she's only missed like 1 or 2 free throws all year.
I kind of went past free throw percentage. I'd have to go back and look just because we were shooting it so bad as a team. Right. I didn't look at the free throw individuals. So,
well, I'm going to, in my mind, she's first in free throw as well. So I'm going to buy both of those. I think her percentage comes down from the 3-point, but I think she can finish in the top 3 at least.
Yeah. I'll look it up and I'll text you later and we'll come back and talk about this on another episode. But because I found Mackenzie Holmes at 71.4% free throw percentage. She's 16th. I wonder if maybe Sarah hasn't shot enough free throws. There's usually some kind of standard for a minimum attempts per game, something like that. So I'll go back and look at it again, but I'm usually the Indiana jumps right off at me. So, but anyway, Mackenzie Holmes, can Mackenzie crack top 15?
Okay. Yes. Brandon here on Twitter is saying she has not shot enough free throws to be first. So thanks, Brandon, for fact checking us on that. Appreciate it. She will be by the end of the year. No, that's my buy.
I hope so.
Okay. All right. Where are we at?
Can Mackenzie move up? She's 16th currently. Can she crack the top 15?
I think she can move up to in the top 15 on free throw percentage. I hope so. And I think hopefully maybe we can get Sarah shooting some more, maybe driving and getting fouled a little bit more.
Chloe Moore McNeil's averaging 5.1 assists per game. That's good for 6th. Yarden at 3.9 for 11th. Can Chloe get in the top 5? Can Yarden get in the top 10?
I think Chloe can get in the top 5. I'm buying that. I think I'm going to sell on Yarden. I think maybe she can finish in the top 15. I think top 10 might be a bridge too far for her. But, again, it's kind of dependent on how the rest of the team is shooting as well. But I definitely think Chloe can get in the top 5, though.
Chloe Moore, we'll go this one real quick. Chloe Moore McNeil, 3.7 assist to turnover ratio. She's first in the league. Can she stay? She did this last year. Can she stay there?
Yeah. She finished first in the league in the assist to turnover ratio, and I think she'll finish there again.
Yeah, I agree. I think Chloe will be first in assist to turnover ratio. Mackenzie Holmes, 1.4 blocks per game, which puts her 4th. Can she stay in the top 5? Buy or sell?
I think buying that. I think she can be in the top 5. Yeah.
I agree. This is an interesting one. Chloe Moore McNeil's currently averaging 1.8 steals per game. That's 13th in the league. And for as good a defense as this team traditionally plays, they're not a high steal rate team per se. They just they'll just lock you up. So can Chloe crack the top 10 in steals per game? Buy or sell?
I think she can. Yes. It's interesting. I would have thought she would already been in the top 10. And again, that's a good eye test to see, defense versus just stats in this case. And so I think her defense feels more top 10 than the 1.8 steals at 13th. But I think I'll buy that. I'm going to feel optimistic on it.
I will too. I think she can get in the top 10. I'm going to take this out, but just kind of curiosity, just more about your idea of where we are with this team. Sarah Scalia leads the team with 29 minutes per game. That's 18th in the league. I think that's a good thing, Kathy. I think it's great because we've sat here for basically 2+ years talking about the amount of minutes our starters have played. And we our only starter in the top 20 in league in minutes through basically the non-conference season is Sarah Scalia. I think that's a good thing. What do you think?
I do too. I think that, as much as we've been harping on get the bench playing more, get the bench playing more, get the bench playing more, I think it's been playing more, which I really hope that again gets kind of, catapulted then into conference play. But, we've seen then when we get into these tight games, we already saw it, I think in the Rutgers game when we were on the road, Coach Morin really tightened up and she tightened up fast. And I think we basically only had 2 bench players in that game playing. So I think that Sarah's minutes, unfortunately, are probably going to go up and that's not going to hold her at 18th. I think that all of our starters' minutes end up going up, depending on, like you said earlier, on the foul trouble that we hopefully don't get into.
Okay. So that was a little bit of fun. And Kathy, thanks for playing along with me because I threw that at you this afternoon. You weren't as prepared for it. I didn't want it to be something you had like 2 or 3 days. I was thinking about this for a day or so. I was like, let's do some buy, sell something. We talked about this a couple episodes ago. So let's talk about the Big Ten. And we're not going to do this in every episode, but we got a little bit of time here. And the Big Ten, essentially, everybody's played one game so far. But realistically, the Big Ten is going to begin this weekend. The Big Ten season will begin this weekend. And here's the schedule. And then, Kathy, I want you to tell me which games intrigue you. Saturday, Ohio State at Michigan, both 1-0 in the league. Minnesota at Iowa, both 1-0 in the league. Excuse me. Rutgers at Northwestern, both 0-1. Michigan State at Penn State, both 0-1. And then Wisconsin at Purdue, both 0-1. And then Sunday, Maryland at Nebraska, both 1-0. So give me a game that intrigues you in that of those matchups.
I'm going to pick 2. So the first one I think is the Ohio State at Michigan. Ohio State is, they were held pretty close with Penn State there for a long time. It took them overtime to win. They took UCLA down to the wire. And I think Ohio State is an interesting team. And I'd like to see how they do on the road against Michigan, who is a team we're not quite sure on yet. And so I think that game in particular is going to tell us a lot about both games. And the same kind of line with that, Minnesota at Iowa. I think Iowa comes away with this win for sure. However, I'd be curious to see how close Minnesota is. That's a team we've been talking about in Minnesota about being the surprise team of the Big Ten so far this year. How do they handle now going on the road, playing the caliber of Iowa against a sold out crowd? I think that's going to tell us a lot about Minnesota. I don't know that we learn anything new about Iowa in that game.
I like those 2 games that you mentioned just because, but one thing I'll throw out there, in both of those games, the loser's really not out of the league race yet. I mean, it's one of those where, if you're Ohio State and you lose on the road at Michigan, okay, you're on the road. You can maybe live with it, even though you might have thought you would win that game. You go on the road as Ohio, and that one to me is the one that's kind of like, oh man, I'm going to try and tune into that game if I can find it, as long as it's not on BTN Plus. Because I think that if OSU goes in there, I've always been a big believer that you win the league by winning at home and and stealing as many games on the road as you can. And here's an opportunity for OSU to steal a win and on the road. After they'd struggled, they went to overtime with Penn State, and they were almost lucky to get into overtime with Penn State in Columbus earlier in the month. The Minnesota game, I'm with you. I'm trying to figure out exactly how good they are, and I think we'll kind of get a better idea of where Minnesota is. Charlie Cream has them in the bracketology that came out yesterday that I posted in the Substack. So right now he's at least believing enough in them. The game that really intrigues me is Saturday, Michigan State at Penn State. The loser's probably going to be really having a hard time making a move in the league standings because you're going to be 0-2. There's going to be teams that are 2-0, and you'll have lost a game at home. In one of those, because Michigan State already lost at home. Penn State here now, if they were to lose, they're going to be 0-2 on the road, and have lost at home. So that's the game I'm going to kind of keep a side view on, kind of a corner of my eye watching that game. Because we're still not exactly sure how good either of those two teams are. Michigan State's getting a lot of love from the net as we go through the season, and they've gotten some love from Charlie Cream. That's started to back off here a little bit. But again, they've put up points. This is a team that's I believe, first in the Big Ten in points per game right now. So we'll see if they can continue that type of scoring mentality when they get there. The other game I'm really going to be interested in is Maryland at Nebraska on Sunday. 1-0 in the league, both of them. And Nebraska is never an easy place to play. We're still not exactly sure how good Maryland is. Are they that fourth, fifth team like we thought they would be? Or are they more a sixth or seventh team in the league? So we're going to find out a little bit about both teams on Sunday. Kathy, what do you think about that game or the Michigan State game?
Yeah, that I was going to mention the Maryland-Nebraska game too. With being on the road in Nebraska, I've been to a game in Nebraska when Indiana was playing. Then it's a tough environment. I think Lincoln really does a great job supporting their sports, especially their female sports, their women's sports. And this is not going to be any cakewalk for Maryland. And I think that one will also answer a couple of questions we have. And so, I think, back to the Minnesota-Iowa game, I don't think it's a question mark of Iowa. I think we know what we have with Iowa. I think it's a question mark of Minnesota right now, because if they go in there and get their doors blown off, maybe we come back and we say, you know what, that Minnesota non-conference was a little bit of fool's gold. And we'll see how it goes. But then again, you can also chalk it up to being Iowa. So, but the Maryland at Nebraska, because Maryland seems to have been, we're not quite sure what they are anymore. And coming into a rough road environment, I think we'll see if they keep that close or even pull out the win. That might answer a few questions for Maryland. And I think agree. That would show us that maybe, they really are that kind of fourth team in the conference.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. The other game that we didn't mention, we're not trying to just be rude about, but Wisconsin at Purdue. It's at Purdue. I would expect Purdue to win that game. Yeah. If they don't, if Wisconsin goes into West Lafayette and pulls out a victory at Mackey, I think that tells us a little bit more about Purdue than it does Wisconsin as well. So, but I would expect that, to Purdue to get that win there. So, Kathy, let's move on as we wrap up the podcast here tonight and get your final thoughts.
Yeah, I think, it was a great way, this Bowling Green game, what we came here to talk about originally was the Bowling Green game. I think this is a great way, a nice tune up for them coming into now the teeth of the Big Ten Conference. And so, they're going to at least be able to open up at home against Illinois, and that will bode well. I hope we see a ratchet up now of our attendance. We've been averaging right around that mid 8,000 attendance, which has been fantastic. We hit the 9,000 mark against Bowling Green. I really hope that keeps going up, and especially once the students come back. So I'm expecting to ring in the new year with a win from our Indiana Hoosiers for sure.
Yeah, what a nice way to go into the Christmas break, get a few days off. I'm sure Coach Morin gave them a few days. They probably came back on maybe Monday. They might even have had to be back in by Monday evening and be ready to go through a workout. Monday evening. Maybe since they don't play till Sunday, she didn't. She waited till to bring them back on Tuesday, but she was able to give them a few days away, I'm sure. And no better way than going out on a 49-point victory
Right.
into your break. But I think now you get down to what really Coach Morin's talked about in the past. The season is about winning the Big Ten, getting as good a seed in the Big Ten tournament as you can, and that will all set up your NCAA tournament as well. But you're the defending champion, and you're going to get everybody's best shot, including Illinois, on Sunday at Simon Scott Assembly Hall. So just going to have to be ready, game in and game out, for everything that's coming. So with that, so we'll wrap it up here, and we'll get some Bob Thompson music that Kathy's going to throw up for us.
I got a little happy. Mackenzie has happy feet, and I had a happy mouse.
That's all right. I've messed up enough things on the producer side of this show. So up next, we'll return on Wednesday, because I'm actually going to go. My family and I, we're actually going to go down to the game for Illinois on Sunday with New Year's Eve. Hopefully get back to Rensselaer before the crazy people get out driving on the highways, and celebrate here at home. But we'll be back on Wednesday, a week from tonight, January 3rd at 8 Eastern, 7 Central, to wrap up the Illinois game and preview the Michigan game, which will be on Thursday, January the 4th. Also want to remind you, Simply Call Radio will return tomorrow night for their regular show. If you want to see us do the show live or be a part of the live chat, the Workaholics here, make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/@, that's the @ at Back Home Network, youtube.com/@Back Home Network. You can be a part of our private community as well. Find out more at assemblycall.substack.com. Special thanks to John Ringer of Rig Designs for designing our logos and helping us do a lot of the artwork you're now seeing us we do on Substack. And then also a big thank you to Bob Thompson for our music that you hear throughout the podcast. And thank you guys for listening. Great job, Workaholics, seeing a bunch of you in here tonight over Christmas break. Really appreciate that. Or wherever you're getting your podcast feed. We appreciate you listening to us and giving us any feedback you possibly can. Kathy and I always enjoy meeting fans of the show when we're out in games or places around. Also, we do want to remind you there will be an Assembly Call kind of Back Home Network meetup on February the 2nd in Bloomington. Kathy and I are going to both try to be there. I know Kathy's going to be there. I have maybe some radio obligations here in the local community. I'm going to have to wait. That's girls sectional week here in Indiana. So it'll kind of depend on how the local team does in the sectional. But we want to thank everybody for listening, and then we'll be back to talk IU hoops with you next Wednesday. Until then, keep your elbow in, your eye is on the rim, and go Hoosiers.
All right.
Good show.
Well, Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year. I agree with Kathy.
Yeah.
Be safe out there.
Yeah. We don't go anywhere. We just have friends come over. So we decided to quit going to the bars a number of years ago after we paid $75 to get an Uber to come 2 miles home. So we decided, you know what? We're just going to be a little cheaper. We'll get pizza. We play a lot of games, watch football, and we have a great time. So we are having about 9 of us this year. It'd be good.
That's pretty much what we do. We just stay home with family and chill and kind of do some stuff around here, eat food, watch football and basketball, whatever we can find on the TV. But we just don't, the older I get, the less I want to be out, possibly I'm okay with not drinking on New Year's Eve and being the designated driver, but it's the other people who are out driving in the middle, at night that worry me. So anyway, but Kathy, I hope you and Sean have a great New Year. Yes. We will talk to you next week when we talk about this Illinois game, hopefully a victory.
Happily. All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Talk to you next year, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.